the cruise lines changed their rules again. So does that mean that I changed my mind again? Let's figure this out. Yeah, corny. Know it. Totally love it. Just trying to figure this thing out like I talked about on the last one. So we watched last week, and last 2 weeks, as just so many of the cruise lines changed their rules. We had the dominoes were falling and then falling back the other way and going back the other way. And when I say that, I don't mean that they were retracting on what they were saying. I just meant that like one cruise line would take it to one point, then the next cruise line would take it to another point, and then the next cruise line would take it to another point. And then one of the first cruise lines that took their measures so far said, well, we got to match the next cruise line and how far they've taken it. So there was the push, the mandates, the protocols, we should say, were just changing for the last 2 weeks. And in my last video, I talked about how I was leaning or had chosen a certain cruise ship, the NCL Prima, versus my initial choice, which was the Odyssey of the Seas, because of choices that Royal Caribbean had made based on mandates in certain islands. And yeah, so it was just a back and forth, a struggle, quick decisions here and there. And then there were some islands that hadn't dropped their rules, so that even changed more as we went back and forth and back and forth. And so even throughout the 2 weeks, as all of those mandates were changing, we saw just big moves forward from each of the cruise lines. And then ultimately, there was the big change with Royal Caribbean that allowed me to make my new decision. But in between all of that, wow, was there some changes, or was there some thoughts on my part? I started to look at different cruises. And originally it was between the Prima, which was a 9-night cruise, or the Odyssey of the Seas, which was a 9-night cruise. And because of Grand Cayman being a stop on both those cruises, it was kind of off the table for a while. And so I started looking at 7-night cruises out of Galveston, Texas, because Royal Caribbean had announced that would be okay. And then Norwegian had opened up more. So the Bliss out of Miami became an option. And both of those were doing a Western Caribbean itinerary, stopping in Costa Maya and Cozumel and Roatan and some great ports. So I was like, well, these are options, and they're great prices. And, my goal is just to get on a New Year's cruise. I got to check off this bucket list item. And so, we were deliberating and never really kind of settled in on a decision. And over the weekend, I had been driving around, and I said to myself, let's just check in on Grand Cayman. Let's look at their website. Let's see if they're announcing any news now that the cruises are kind of dropping their protocols. Are the islands getting ready to open back up to some visitors too, because, they need the income as well. And sure enough, I saw on the website, even before anybody had announced this, I just went on the Grand Cayman website, and they said, starting August 24th, which was yesterday as I record this video, that they were going to allow, basically, they dropped all their protocols. Everyone could come, no testing, no requirements, just come and visit the island, which is great. Yeah, so that opened up a whole realm of possibilities, I should say, because obviously it was the weekend, nobody was making any decisions, and sure enough, right after first thing Monday morning, Royal Caribbean came out and stepped the bar up even more, changed their protocols, and I'm not going to get into them on this video because they're just changing so often, and everybody's covering them out there. There's different guys you can watch that really go into what the protocols are, but let's just say that the protocols changed in a way that allowed me to kind of reassess back to my original thoughts now that Grand Cayman was back on the table, and that Florida ports were on the table for Royal Caribbean. It just kind of opened up the initial thought. So I started weighing out the options, and the Odyssey of the Seas had a couple of stops in there that I had not been to, and that was Aruba and Curacao. And I got to tell you, those two stops were pretty big on my list of reasons why I initially picked the Royal Caribbean ship was because it was going to the Southern Caribbean. I'm looking to cruise in January. I know that the weather in the Southern Caribbean is going to be much nicer than, in Florida in December and January. It can still be pretty chilly out there, and not California chilly or Chicago chilly, but, Florida chilly. And if you're getting ready to go on a Caribbean cruise, you want to have some days where you're able to be out enjoying the sun and the hot weather and just not be worried about, is it going to be chilly? In the Western Caribbean, I've done a cruise down to the Western Caribbean in February, and it was pretty chilly leaving out of Florida, and it was, not the best weather in the Western Caribbean until you get further south. So I figured, well, why not hit the Southern Caribbean, get closer to the equator? No, not quite there, but you're going down that way. And let's just see what that could bring. So, so those were a couple of the stops that I had really owned in on. So I'm just kind of curious what you guys think. Have you guys been to Aruba? Have you been to Curacao? Have you been to some of those Southern Caribbean stops? Have you been there in the winter? Is my thought process kind of right in this, in where I'm at and what I'm thinking? If so, let me know in the comments. Tell me, yeah, you made a good choice. That those stops are going to be way better in the winter, especially, with the weather, and they're beautiful stops. Or, nah, man, you could have it's going to be the same. You could have stuck to the Western Caribbean and hit those spots and had a good trip either way. Ultimately, yeah, I landed back on the Odyssey. I'm booked up. I got a guaranteed balcony, great rate, sailing with a group. Found a group on Facebook that's pretty strong. It's got a lot of people going. It sounds like it's going to be pretty exciting. Got some energy in the Facebook group, and that's always good. If you can have pre-cruise energy in a Facebook group, you're going to have some real cruise energy once you get on the ship. And I'm pumped. And now I'm just in the planning stages of finding got to find some airfare. It's over New Year's. Luckily, coming back, it's like a week past New Year's, so there should be the return flight's looking a little more promising than getting there. Hotels in Fort Lauderdale are not super crazy. They're not as good as I've seen them, but they're not super crazy. And again, it's New Year's week, so I'm grateful that there's some opportunity and some options there. And I'm just overall just looking forward to getting back on Royal Caribbean. It's my favorite cruise line. I'm an Emerald with them. I got 59 cruising points. I'm looking forward to getting the double cruising points on this sailing, and just looking forward to all of the great things that I miss about cruising and that I miss about being on Royal Caribbean, and meeting a bunch of new people, and just getting out there. And just as as I'm evolving the name of this channel right now, it's sitting at Just Out Exploring, JOE. And what do you know? My name is Joe. So a little play on words there, but that's just what I love to do. Last weekend I was down at Disneyland with my kids for celebrating my son's birthday. So I'm going to put some content out about that, and, just share some of my adventures. I love to do lots of local adventures here in the Bay Area and just get out as much as I can. So I'm looking forward to sharing those with you guys. So if that's the kind of content that you're looking for, that's mainly going to be cruise centric, because that's kind of my favorite thing. But it's going to also kind of go around some of the exploring that I do here in the Bay Area and just do in general. Then please, I invite you guys to subscribe to the channel and like this video. Let me know what you think again about the stops that I'm looking at, and about the ship that I chose. Let me know if I'm crazy for going through all these different notions, and maybe I should have just been a little more patient because I could have stuck on Odyssey. Although in the long run it ended up better deal. Got a balcony before I was going to be on the interior. So it kind of worked out better to go through these little hoops, but, was I impatient? Should I have just waited? And, I look forward to you guys watching some of my videos, watching the journey as I plan up to the trip. I'm going to talk about a lot of different things, and I have some pretty cool video ideas that I'll be releasing soon. So thanks for watching this video, guys. I know it's short, but again, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and leave me some comments down below and help me grow this channel. All right, guys. Thanks. Bye.